My name's Lisa, and I'm the project coordinator for the geocaching project. So we're going to spend the next hour and a half hopefully giving you a good overview on what the project was all about. They invited me here today because it's like so exciting that we've been able to create this project and be able to deliver it. Some of the things that I'll be talking about is, of course, I'm going to give you an overview of the project and what geocaching is, how the numeracy component applies to the programming, and of course we can't go without an activity. How the curriculum was developed, an outline of what that looks like, and how geocaching relates to the OALCF and how it relates to employment. And yeah, so that's basically what our next hour and a half. I have a phone. The next hour and a half is going to look like. At any point, if there are any questions, please, stop me and ask. I'll talk about it a little bit, but I just finished this project or the pilot piece of this project on Friday, so I am still super pumped and still kind of there and not here, but so questions, okay, if you have any. On your table there should be a pre and post evaluation, and so if you can just take a moment and complete the pre-evaluation, please. So I think it's just 4 questions, 3 questions, 4 questions, yeah. A vision, and she wanted to create a curriculum that was a little bit different and unique to the regular curriculum of teaching adults. And so she applied for a seed grant, and we were awarded the grant, and it was a 1-year grant. And I know it wasn't the first time that she applied for the grant, and I think I was going to let her just tell us a little bit about the process for if it's something that you'd want to do for yourselves and your agencies.
So has anybody applied for a program grant in the last little while? Seed grants? Yeah. Okay. So I applied for the seed grant, and what happened was they sent it back, they said no. And so I called them and I said, why did you say no? And they said, because you didn't have any measurement or metrics in it. Seed grants aren't supposed to have metrics in them necessarily, so I expressed my concern about that, but I did add metrics to the next proposal. I had to submit it twice, and then we were awarded it. So we put in some measurement tools where we were going to move learners from one level to the next level in terms of the metrics that they wanted to see. So that's how we became successful in actually getting a grant. So it is a 1-year grant, and from what I understand for seed grants, whether the project is successful or not, it's also going to be a feasibility study to see if it is successful, because this is about geocaching and literacy and essential skills. So it's tying that to employment as well. So we had to make all of those adjustments to the seed grant. So if you have submitted a seed grant and they say no, don't give up. Do it again, because you could potentially get awarded the project. And for seed grants, it's up to $75,000 a year through the Trillium Foundation. And if you know what I have done in the past, when I was with Locks, we created the Alicia project, which was about literacy and essential skills in industrial arts. And when I came back into working into an agency, I really wanted the geocaching, because I really think there's a huge connection between the numeracy piece and having some fun and having a delivery method that's a little different, because we take them right outside of the classroom and do delivery in the community. So it's about engaging in the community as well. So that's what the seed grant was all about. Any questions about that at all? No.
Okay, so I came on in March, and basically, so we're almost at the 1 year, but the grant consisted of being able to research, develop, and pilot a curriculum. So that was part of the award. So as I mentioned, I just finished the pilot. It was 5 weeks. It ran 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and for morning sessions only for 3 hours a morning. It's interesting because when I started this, I started it with 2 days a week, and as I start to put the planning in place, it was like there was no way I was going to be able to fit everything into 2 days a week. So we really used all 3 days, like every second of it was used. So probably, and the learners that were working with me for the pilot were were higher level learners, and so we even used every second. So if I had a lower level learner, I probably would think about extending the time period to maybe even 6 weeks. Yeah, so the curriculum was written probably at a level 2, and part of this, the seed was to be able to show an increase in level, and so I believe we were able to do that. It's still early, Friday, so but I think you know, we definitely there was activities and milestones in there to be able to show that increase. So within the curriculum, definitely an alternative method of learning for adult literacies, and using the 9 essential skills have been incorporated into that. And is everybody aware of the 9 essential skills and what they are? Okay, awesome, cool. I always have to remember that, you know, we're practitioners and not students, so I apologize if I start to get into it. Okay, so this new curriculum will help adult learners develop their skills in a unique way through geocaching while learning transferable employment skills. Does everybody know what geocaching is? Do I have anybody? Not? No? Okay. Okay, awesome. Cool. Okay. So my definition of geocaching is that it's it's an activity in which individuals are given the geographical coordinates of a cache of items which they search for using a GPS device. So to go geocaching, you need a GPS device or a GPS-enabled device, a computer with internet, and a membership to a geocaching website. I used geocaching.com. It seems to be the largest website. I don't know if we'll go on today just because the internet is a little bit so we'll see for time. We may be able to I may be able to try and log in at the end of the session just to give you a little bit of a brief outline on that. Does anybody have a geocaching account? Yeah. Has anybody gone geocaching in this room? Yeah. Oh, sweet. Okay. Anybody an expert geocacher?
If I could find that one in Ferris Park.
What's that?
If I could find that one in Ferris Park.
Oh, yeah, you will be. Yeah. How long have you been working on that one for?
6 years.
6 years. Okay.
No, I refuse to give up. People keep commenting and going,
Yeah, I just have a short video to show you. It just takes a little bit of time to load. So, are we good? Yeah.
Any day, anytime adventure that can take you to amazing and beautiful places, or even just to a place in your town that you've never been before. There are millions of geocaches worldwide. There are probably even some near you right now. Yes, you. To start finding them, just get out your phone or GPS. Go ahead. I'll wait. Then, create a free geocaching account and you're ready to go. The way it works is simple. Just choose the geocache you want to find, then navigate to its location. What you're looking for varies. Geocaches come in different sizes, shapes, and difficulties. Geocaching isn't always easy, so it's okay to get excited when you discover the cache. After finding it, sign the logbook. Trade knickknacks if you want, and log your find online. When you're done, just put the geocache back where you found it, and you're on to the next one. Hey, it's the other way. There's an adventure happening all the time, all around you. Become a part of it at geocaching.com.
So it's interesting for those people who aren't familiar with geocaching. Literally, right now they've just found or placed the 3 million mark. It was sometime in the summertime that are geocaches placed worldwide. And literally they are everywhere. So I pulled up Gananoque, so this is a picture of your neighborhood, Gananoque, and there are 105 geocaches within a 16-kilometer radius of where we are right now. Yeah, so if you have your GPSs, then be ready to go. I wanted to, but with the weather, we had to kind of have a change of plan, so. The really interesting thing about geocaching is that we really wanted to try and target youth and get them involved in doing this. We thought it would be a really great way of getting them involved in literacy and teaching the essential skills and applying those to the workplace. But not only for youth, but basically it's an activity that anybody can do. So even if one of your learners, maybe an older learner and they have families with children, it's a great way to get their kids out and going and involved. People who are kids, people who are, I find like 20-year-olds and retired adults. So like basically anybody can do it, everybody does it. And if you know somebody who geocaches and they do it regularly, there's a passion there that is just unbelievable. I had no idea when I started this, and it's a complete community that most of us don't even know, doesn't even know that exists. So it's very, very cool. So the closest geocache to us right now is the Rock and Roll on the Parkway. So before I came, I went into the cache, and basically it's right on the highway. And so people will stop, and if you sometimes see cars pulled at the side of the road, that may be what they're doing if they're kind of looking at their phones. So there's one right off of the highway. And so if you look at the information on that cache, this is just small details of it, but if you actually click into that, it'll give you a cache page that will give you all the information on that cache. But right off, it tells you who created the cache. A really important piece is the difficulty level of that cache. So if you note that that's a difficulty 3, it can be from anywhere from 1 to 5. And 3 is pretty difficult. As you move up, things that may affect the difficulty level would be things like equipment. If you need like kayak or rock climbing equipment, it could be a mind puzzle that you have to create or solve. So that really identifies it. And another thing would be terrain. Also goes from a level of 1 to 5. So this one looks like it's a 1.5, so it probably wouldn't be that difficult of a terrain. Anything over a 1 is not wheelchair accessible. But then again, you can, as you get to a 5, it could be, buried under the ocean. So where you might need some scuba gear. So you really can take it at any length. Some people plan their entire vacations around geocaching. Like, it's unbelievable. Well, I think I'm gonna go to, Brazil because they have this great geocache there. Yeah, and you can get, some of the caches can get quite, creative. And so, you get your different types of caches, different sizes of caches. And in talking to my geocaching expert, they just released a cache that takes 4 people to open it. So each person needs to be doing something different to be able to open, and it's extremely large. It's not like, yeah. So they can get, it's very, 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 very interesting. Okay, so to talk about a little bit about essential skills. So how are the essential skills integrated into the curriculum? Well, basically I've just taken the basic activity and I've looked at, and we're not going to go through all the essential skills because we know what they are, but I just want to take the activity and maybe just talk about the first 3 items. So if you look at so how to find a cache. So if you look at the first item, the first thing you would do is create an account. And by doing that, you have to log onto the computer. If you search the geocaching website, and then create an account. So you're using digital technology. So you're using the computer to search the website that hosts the website. So you're doing that search, and then you would use document use, because from there you would then have to fill in information for required for creating that account. So just a couple of examples of just creating an account. Next thing you would have to do is select a cache that you want to find. So again, you would be continuing with digital technology as you navigate through the geocaching website. You'd have to use your thinking skills, because you're planning and organizing tasks by considering geocache ratings and the attributes. Attributes are a list of things that come with the cache, like are you able to ride your bike? Is there poison ivy? Is it a long hike? Is it animal child friendly? So those would be considered attributes. So when a learner is looking at that cache, they would have to look at that kind of thing and say, okay, is this a cache for me? Am I able to do these things? Do these attributes, is it something that's going to affect my planning for that route? Yeah, so they're looking at difficulty, access, distance, time, which is really huge, because sometimes when we're planning if we're going to do a route of caches, it's always going to take you longer to go to that cache than you think of, because something may come up, like, oh, it's no longer a straight line because there's a big forest in front of us and we're going to now have to walk around the forest. So that 5-minute distance of getting in there to look for the cache may now become 20 minutes. So those are things that you have to think about when you're deciding on caches. Is it across the other side of town? How am I going to get there? Do I have the transportation? Lots and lots of things that someone would have to think about, or a learner would have to think about before deciding on that cache. And then enter coordinates. So enter coordinates of the cache into your GPS device. The essential skills there would be, first of all, reading, because we have to understand how to use our GPS. Really, really important. And as the person delivering the curriculum, you really need to understand your GPS before you start trying to teach your learners how to use it. So in this curriculum, there is an extensive a whole section on how to use your GPS. Numeracy, so mapping skills and understanding what longitude and latitude are before you can enter the coordinates. And then, of course, again, problem solving. Once your GPS says that you're close to the cache, you're usually within around 10 meters of that cache, because GPS, of course, doesn't give you a direct location. It's an approximate location, and of course we talked about that in the curriculum. So yeah, you have to go, okay, so where would I start looking for this cache? If I was placing this cache, where would it be? would it be stuck on a fence? Would it be high? Would it be low? Is it buried? Is it covered? So lots of things that you have to think about. And it was really interesting because the group that I took out, they really worked well together. And none of them were existing TVLA learners, so they were all brand new to the program. And it was really amazing to see how they worked together and trying to problem solve some of the issues that came up. It was really, really very cool.
How did you find them and advertise to the learners?
How did we advertise?
How did you manage to get new people to come in?
Most of the learners came through Ontario Works. Yeah, so we just basically, send out emails, distribution like we normally would advertise our programs. There was a flyer and basically, yeah.
And I guess you would have to do an initial assessment to read
Yeah, they came in as regular learners. They went through the whole process. Yep, we did our regular assessment that we normally would do on them.
And what was the deciding factor that they would be a suitable candidate for this?
You know what? The only requirement that I asked for is that they had an existing email account.
So they didn't have to have a phone?
Nope. We provided all the equipment. Yeah. Yeah, and that was part of the funding. We were able to buy. So this is. I brought one. So if you get a chance, I just have a little small display here of what would be mandatory for a learner going out. So geocaching. So we did two major outings. One was a rural outing and one was an urban outing. It was the other way around, urban and then rural. But so basically, definitely the essentials of going out for a day of geocaching. Okay, and you can take a look, but having the right maps, safety glasses, extra batteries, right? Because when these run out, and they do, you've got another pair. We've got so everything, when we searched for caches and we decided which ones we wanted to take, we logged everything. Okay, so we're using our document use. And then it's everything about the cache. So that as they were out in the field, they were able to then refer to that cache. Oh, okay, it's this one. This is the difficult rating on it. This is the terrain rating. This is, what we have to remember. This was the hint. So with most of the caches, the person who has placed the cache will identify a hint that will help the person looking for the cache find it.
And how long would you stay out? Like, is it a full day?
You know what? It really depends on the practitioner, the person delivering the program. We did it. Initially, I set up a small course around our building, so that until I knew that they were really. They were able to use the GPSs on their own. So I thought it was really important that they start to use them right away. And then from there, we planned, our first outing was to do an urban outing, and so we used the whole morning. So basically, so we would take a day to plan it, and then we went out. So for a morning, we were able to get in 3 caches.
And how many people would you take out at that time?
That's interesting. We would take them all out at a time. So the maximum that I would recommend for the program to run this would be 8. I had 5. Ideally, to have an even number would be really good, because it's really important that you're always with a partner, and that you don't go geocaching on your own, especially if you're geocaching in the wooded areas.
The video showed her geocaching alone.
I'm sorry?
The video showed her geocaching alone.
Yeah, but she had the person taking the video.
Yeah. So we're all looking
Yeah, just, yeah. You know what? It's a number of reasons. Like I learned, like people do go out on their own, and you know, throughout the city, not too bad. But when you're out in you know, in a wooded setting, and say something happens, you know, there's nobody with you, it could be quite dangerous. And things do happen. You know, you're walking through forested areas, right? You could trip, you could fall, you could, you know, get poked with a branch. Pardon? Sorry?
You're in the city, you're walking through city streets.
You walk? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, depends what time too, right? Okay. Any questions on that? I'm not going to go through each activity, but just to give you an idea of how the essential skills are used. Some of the learners who went through this, and I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end, but they were so excited with geocaching that they now want to go out and geocache. And so trying to find GPSs that they can, you know, that they can afford. So there are a lot of good GPSs online. So like Kijiji, where you can buy most things. There's always the really expert geocacher who, you know, buys the Cadillac, and they're getting rid of their, you know, their less expensive GPS. So you can get inexpensive GPSs.
Why did they choose to use a GPS as opposed to just their cell phones?
GPSs versus cell phones, because they were a lot cheaper. Cell phones are great, but my understanding is they don't have all the capabilities as a GPS, and also it's very expensive on your data plan. Yeah.
Not every learner has a smartphone.
Yeah, and not every learner has a smartphone.
When you're using when you're tracking it on your phone, it's the way it was explained to me. It's just the same as it's just your GPS, right? So it'd be the same as when you're driving and it's constantly telling you where to go. And the cell phone does it. If you put the coordinates directly into the app or into your GPS, it's not as clear on where exactly.
That's where you are. Yeah.
Like when I got a GPS, it was a big.
Yeah. So you have a GPS?
It's not like.
Not that. Okay.
It's more like the Ford Tempo.
Yeah.
But it does the trick.
Yeah. But yeah, great question. And yeah, it's one of those things, right? Okay, because you know today's focus is on numeracy. I'm going to focus on numeracy and geocaching. So some of the activities that we would have completed would be understanding like longitude and latitude coordinates on a map. Okay, so we would have started out with that and being able to read a map. And so what we did was just started from the basics, right? So, you know, why are we doing this? How does this GPS work, right? So having the basics of understanding, you know, how your map is set up. Didn't go into great detail, but you know, the learners did need to know what is a legend, you know, what is a map scale. These are the, you know, these are the coordinates. These are how you find a location. Understanding degrees on a compass, so really important. Being able to understand how to start to navigate and, you know, starting to know how to use a compass, especially when you're out in the woods and your GPS runs out of batteries and you're going, where am I? Okay, so that's why we spent some time on using, understanding how a compass works. And understanding time and day and different time zones, because again, it's really important on identifying coordinates, knowing what the time zones are and how that affects your GPS and your compass. And then understanding distance and location. Okay, so we had to be able to measure distance on a map. We had to be able to understand what a pace was, because if I'm in the woods, approximately or estimating how far a meter is, right? So if I'm in the woods and I got to go there, how far is that? So lots of hands-on applying the numeracy to actually things that they could identify with. Any questions on that?
We did have one of the learners, when we were out doing one of the caches, when we were actually doing learning orienteering up at, there's a camp just north.
And I'm just going to interrupt. And every time we went out, pouring rain,
Yeah.
like it was this morning.
Well, one of the learners said, well, we're doing geometry. And I said, yeah, so you're doing math. No, we're doing geometry. I said, geometry is math. So the learners didn't even have they did not even have that concept that geometry was actually math. So it's just amazing what you learn from what they're experiencing.
So guess what? Now it's our turn. So what we're going to do is, because the weather was not behaving today, Leslie and I have set up something in this room, and we're going to be using compasses. Anybody familiar with the use of a compass? Oh, nice. Maybe you should split up. So in preparing for the navigational skills, learners had to know how to use one of these. So what I'm going to do, Leslie, so maybe if we can, I have 10 compasses, so maybe what we can do is work with a partner. A compass is an instrument containing a magnetized pointer that shows the direction of magnetized north. We talk about that with the learners, the difference between magnetic north and true north. I won't do that today. But magnetic north is determined by the Earth and its internal magnetic field. So there's that magnetic field, and the pointer on our compass draws in that direction. So what we're going to do today is we're going to prepare for an activity, and what we're going to do is we're going to locate compass bearings. And so basically what that is finding it's the direction towards which you are headed, as shown on your compass. So in doing that, we have our compass, and then what we're going to do is we're going to walk paces. Does anybody know how long a pace is? Is it right there? Is it right there?
30 inches.
Okay.
Can you do 30 inches when you walk?
Yeah.
This is 30 inches.
That's 30 inches.
This is 30 inches. That's the pace. By the way, this is a really good measuring tape. If you want to use a measuring tape in your programs, this has fractions and decimals on it. So it's really useful. We use it for the people that are going through apprenticeships, working for apprenticeships.
Okay, so this is a picture of a compass. It's a little bit different than the ones that we have. So we just need to be concerned about 4 areas here. So the first one is your direction of travel. Okay, on your compasses it's a red arrow. Okay.
Everybody see the red arrow?
See the red arrow on your compass? Okay. Then we need to identify the needle pointing north, and that's the red needle. Okay, so wherever that red needle points, that is magnetic north. The third area is the compass dial. Okay, so that's the part on your compass that turns. Okay, your compass dial. And there's one identifier that is not on my picture I just noticed last night. It's called the index pointer. So if you're looking down at your compass and your direction, your direction of travel arrow is facing away from you, there should be underneath the dial just a line. Does everybody see that? Is we're going to follow a bearing. So to find a location, take a bearing with your compass and head in that direction. Now before we get started, you need, and everybody does this, with your direction arrow, okay, you cannot hold it like this. And everybody does at least once. Okay, it has to be straight in front of you. It has to be lying as flat as it can be. Okay, and that's how you're going to walk. So you can't go like this, right? It's not going to work. So it has to be directly in front of you. Okay, so turn the dial on your compass until the index pointer reaches 225 degrees. Hold the compass flat in your hand so the direction of travel arrow points directly away from you. Okay, and then turn your entire body until the north end of the needle, which is the red needle, north end of the needle rests squarely in the orienting arrow. So there are 4 bearings in this room. Well, actually there's 8 because we're going to divide you into 2 groups. And what you're going to do is you're going to find the bearing, and at that bearing there's going to be letters. And I gave you a little piece of paper.
White paper?
White paper on your...
Small white paper?
Yeah.
Got it.
So take a piece of paper and a pen, and the person who does not have the compass is going to write down the instruction to the next bearing, okay? So each location is going to give you your new degrees and then the amount of paces that you need to walk to the next clue. Yes?
So like if you have to walk through a table, you have to guesstimate.
You can walk around it.
Yeah, we're going to have to walk around it, and that's an excellent question. I don't want you walking over tables.
In your pace? though?
Yeah, so you have to
Like,
guesstimate the paces underneath.
Yeah, so in your count, you're going to count going around the table, okay? Yeah, you know what? It doesn't always have to be 30 inches. Again, it's yours to do as you want.
Your directions, is going to be like always in paces?
Yeah, what I try to do is I try to get them to estimate how many paces would be in 100 meters, right? So that, and because their paces may be a little bit different than yours, or mine would be a little bit different than yours. Yeah, because you're not going to go 30 inches, 30 inches, 30 inches. Yeah, so it may be a little bit different for each learner, depending on how long your stride is. Okay, I have to talk really quickly and I want to say so much more. So basically developing the curriculum. Briefly, I got a subject matter expert who was hugely passionate. I couldn't have done this without him. He guided me all the way. He's so passionate that he is a trackable on geocaching.com. So he literally has a tattoo with the registration number, and if you look up that registration number on the website, you can find him.
Do you get the tracking number?
Yeah, I know I don't have it on me, but yeah, yeah.
I want to know.
Yeah, you want to, yeah. Research, there was so much to learn. Technology, I knew nothing when I started this, and basically the most challenging part was using the GPS, because it did take time. And in that, really, I don't have for my poo story.
Yeah, tell us.
Okay, I have to tell my poo story. Oh, I just gave it away. I was told, asked to do the project, yeah, do it. Okay, now I got a geocache, right? So my partner had a car navigating GPS, and he loaded everything in the coordinates into the car, and off we go. Of course, nothing was in order, and we were like going all over the town. And so my first cache, right? Yeah, I know what I'm doing. Well, I had no clue, right? So I just, I'm inside the bushes. I'm on the ground. I don't know if it can be buried or, because you can't disturb the environment when you're doing this. But I didn't know this. So I'm looking at everything, and then so there was this like little bag tucked under a rock, and I'm thinking, okay, that's got to be it. That's that it's like an environmental bag, and yeah, what a great hiding spot. And that's the bag. It looks like it would have the logbook and the pen inside it to log your find, sign your name on it. And I pick it up, and I go, yeah, this is it. And I start squishing it, looking for the logbook. Of course, my partner is like killing himself laughing, right? Open the bag, and of course, yeah, doggy doo-doo. Thank goodness it was just a small dog. So I have learned a lot. So in creating and developing the geocaching, I created an essential skills profile for geocaching, which includes the 9 essential skills and everything that comes under that for a geocacher. I identified the transferable skills for geocaching to employment, and quickly, I'll talk about that in a second. And then from there, Leslie created a resume to help learners understand how to connect everything that we learned to the resume. Yes?
Unrelated to what you're saying here, just popped into my head. Are there any concerns about like insurance when you take people out of the classroom?
Yep, it came up, yep. We had to call our insurance company, to let them know, And in saying that was a piece of the curriculum. I do talk about quite extensively about safety, and one of the things that I recommend is that you have a first aid awareness. I did a first aid awareness. It wasn't a certification, but recommend that you take some sort of certification, because stuff happens, So geocaching outline. So just briefly about what's in the curriculum. I do an overview, geocaching, all the essential skills. So they've got essential skills embedded in their brains before they even get started. We talk about GPS, everything you need to know, what GPS is, how satellites work. We talk about how to create routes and understanding a coordinate system, because you have to enter those coordinates into your GPS. We talk about using a smartphone. We don't actually do it, but we do talk about it. Some of the things we do, we talk all about geocaching, so a little bit about how it was created, huge etiquette around geocaching. When you talk to geocachers, really important to keep it a really good activity, so that a lot of times what happens is, and I don't want to say, people will find out about it and they may want to trash the cache. So they call it, it's been muggled. And geocaching has a whole vocabulary on its own, which we do cover. I actually have a research assignment where they have to go in and figure out, a lot of the vocabulary and then share it as a group. We talk about environmental concerns, because lots of things again can happen. Could be like weather. What happens if it's lightning? What do? Let's check the weather forecast. Another activity. Going on the computer and checking that out every day before we go out. Letting people know where you are. Then we do the map and compass, mapping skills. We look at a topographic map. Talk about that. In a second, we actually created a topographic map when we created our route. And when we do our rural planning, our urban planning, I keep doing that, I actually get them to pull out a street map. I get them to pull out their transit map, so they have to get me there, and then they have to give me the bus route to get there. So I try to incorporate a lot of those activities into it. And then, what to bring, right? You don't just go, right? Who do you tell this, we need a flashlight in case it gets dark, or looking at the caches. We have our whistle in case of an emergency. They have gloves because they're picking up things like that. They will have their plan that they've created and the caches that they're going to be looking for. bug spray, always water. We talk about how important it is to be hydrated. And then we talk about putting it all together. And that's when we talk about careers that maybe they'd be interested in, that may have applied some of the essential skills in the tasks that they have built up. So we talk about what essential skills they did, then we go into the essential skills profiles. They actually choose a job that they want to do, it can be anything. And then we identify the geocaching skills that they did and compare them to the job that they want to do, and then pull out those transferable skills. A very interesting exercise. And then again, connecting it to their resume. It was so exciting. So this is just one of the maps that one of the groups created. They created the topographic map for the area that we were geocaching. So if you see the red, white, and blue lines, this is the Trent Trails in Peterborough. I don't want to say this, but the existing map that for the Trent Trails is not a great map. And they're the ones who told me that. And this isn't a great map. It's not correct. It's not to scale. So they pulled this out, and then they have created the trails. So it was the students who identified the red, blue, and yellow trail. And from there, they identified the caches that they wanted to locate within the trails, and they plotted them on the map, and there we go, off we were. They took those maps, and at any time, what's the next cache that we need? And from their logbook, they had recorded all the details of the cache, and off we went. Really, really great exercise.
And you can get that on the Ministry of Natural Resources website.
Yeah.
So you can go in and do that yourself on
Yeah.
the M&R site.
Yeah, create your own topographic map. I don't know, Leslie, do we have time to talk a little bit about the OALCF on this?
Sure. So for the OALCF, how the OALCF applies to this is if you went through the book, remember if anybody was in the exercise and we did the reactions and we were doing yesterday, we actually go in and look at all of what the performance systems actually are and apply it directly to the work that they're doing on here. So there are 4 different things that we're doing within the OALCF applied to this individual activity. So one of the things was A2.3. So that's interpreting documents. So what they did, if you use the OALCF, we use it a lot to make all the applications work with this document. So we actually look at the heading here first to see whether or not that actually fits. So interpret somewhat complex documents to connect, evaluate, and integrate information. So we know we need to look at this, and if they fit, then it will stick in A2.3. If it doesn't, let's move it back to A2.2 and have a look at what's in A2.2. So that's how we actually did determine what the actual OALCF competencies that are applicable to this activity. So we came up with A2.3, and then we came up with B3.3. And the reason we did that, because on the very bottom section of the OALCF, it's about actually creating a document. So that's where it fits in terms of that other piece, one of those other pieces. The next one we came up with was C3.2. There's the numeracy connection. So it's, did I say that right? Yeah, it is. C3.2. So the numeracy connection applies to only, say, for example, it doesn't apply to all of these things on this performance descriptor list. It may apply to only 3 things. So make sure that they fit within the scope of that activity, and then you can actually classify it as a B3 or a C3.2. Does that make sense? Everybody's comfortable with the OALCF? And then the other part of this activity encompassed technology. So it's a D3. Because they actually have to create this map online. So it's a very complex task. So that's how we came up with how that activity gets wrapped around with 4 different competencies in the OALCF. That's it. Any questions? Yes.
So what actual milestones did you guys have to do?
I don't know, which milestones did you do, Lisa? Any milestones?
I had 3. Oh yeah, I had the of course digital technology, and then I had interpret documents. I believe it was 2, and I did. Oh my gosh, I forgot the 3rd one. It'll come to me. Can I? So I did 3. I did 3 milestones with them.
It would have been a math one.
It was measures. Thank you. Yeah. Level 2.
So it will be a standard learner plan going
Yeah.
forward?
Yeah.
So any
There's a-
courses that we create a standard learner plan?
Yeah, and this is, so I just quickly how geocaching goes to employment. I'll take well, I just have the prominent ones, of course. Just take the numeracy one. So it took the essential skill and then it identified the skills through the geocaching application. And then from there, took the occupations within our community with similar skills. Okay, and then applied the workplace task examples for each of the geocaching essential skills. So example, oh, I have document use here, sorry, numeracy. If you look at numeracy, estimate distance and time using metric, imperial, and pacing measurements to find caches. Maybe a landscaping and grounds maintenance laborer would have to do a similar skill, like estimate the amount of time it will take to landscape a property, considering the property layout and dimensions. So that's kind of what I did. Any questions on that? I kind of went through that a little quick, but. Okay, so our adult literacies. I love my little guy. I actually had a learner who looked like this person. Helps them engage in the community where they may not have the opportunity to do so. The learners that I had never done anything like this before, and so they were exposed to places within the community that they didn't even know existed. Of course, understand and apply transferable skills. Become lifelong learners. And of course, love this, sorry, have fun. They had a great time. I really did. I think we're right on time here. Yeah, 1 minute. I had a learner who, I had this article, it's up here, and if you're interested, but just the effects of geocaching, and one of the items that is mentioned that it says it helps with depression, and as we were referring to this article, she said to me, you know, Lisa, I suffer from depression and I cannot remember the last time I looked forward to something. Yeah. The same learner, one of the caches we couldn't find, it was completely pouring rain, and it was one of the urban caches. She called me later in the afternoon and said, I went back twice. I had to find that cache. Anyway, it was really, really a great experience. And this is just the article. I'll just pass by that. And so basically, final thoughts. Remember that, like life, the enjoyment of the activity often lies in the journey as much as the destination. Geocaching can allow us to reflect about what is really important while bringing us to see beautiful places with the potential of meeting new people. Contribute to the geocaching community by sharing your journey, stories, and experiences along the way. We will all be richer for it. A quote by the Brad Simmons, who wrote one of the geocaching books. I believe we're 1201, 1202.
You have
Sorry.
a question?
Yes.
Just walk us through the timeline. How often like when you start with a learner, they've done their assessment and you've decided that they're a good candidate for this.
Yeah.
Then what happens?
Then they get registered for the course.
Okay.
And then when the course starts, they're expected to attend. The course ran 3 days a week in the mornings. I don't know if anybody else is having this problem in their community, but we are finding, we wanted the YJC group to participate because we're in partnership with YJC and another organization in Peterborough. But youth have a failure to commit, right? So all of our courses are designed to run 3 hours in the morning or the afternoon for the majority 2 days a week, just so we can get participation. And so when we advertised it, we did assessments. They have to commit to 2 hours of an assessment and intake process. And then I think it was within 2 or 3 weeks, we started the course.
And how long before they actually go out? Like, a lot of that is classroom.
I have them go out the second day. So the first day I do essential skills. Second day I've created a route around our location, our workplace, and because there's a cache, I think it's like 102 meters behind us, and I program all the GPSs, so they're already having that hands-on experience. And second day we go out and we find that cache. So right, day 2, yeah.
And we did have to call the insurance company and have a waiver put on our policy because we were working outside of the actual building that we're insured for. So that absolutely, but it didn't cost us any more money. They just put a waiver on our policy.
You've got them notified.
Oh, yeah.